Okay golfers, my name is Jim Hassey, golf instructor in San Diego, California. This video is going to go over in detail how to take a correct golf grip. I wish this video could only be 60 seconds long or could be a real short video. Sure would be a lot less work for me. The problem is, in order to go over what needs to happen or what needs to take place for a correct golf grip, it needs to be longer than 60 seconds. So I'm going to go over it as quickly as I can and efficiently as I can, and you have the flexibility to go back and click on parts that you want to watch again. Or if you have questions, post them in the comments section below and I'll answer your questions. Now the two goals of a good golf grip is that the grip needs to be taken in such a way that allows us to rotate the club face open and rotate the club face closed. Golf should be an open to closed sport. It needs to be that way because that is the easiest way to allow a good angle between the left forearm and the club shaft. We want to use physics in our favor. So physics, we want to create this angle and then we want to release this angle. Number two, we want to be able to release this angle or close the club face in a way that our hands get to lead the club head through impact. With irons, that's important because it allows us to hit ball then ground. With all other clubs, or the driver and say the 3-wood or clubs that we don't necessarily need to worry too much about hitting ball then ground, is that we want our hands to be able to lead the club head through impact because we want to accelerate the hands through impact while making it easier for the club face to close through impact. So the third thing about a good golf grip is that we want to take it in such a way where the palms face each other. We don't want the palms not facing each other. The reason being is that I want my hands to be set up in such a way that if I'm flexing and extending my left hand, my left wrist, and I'm flexing and extending my right wrist, the hands are going to be working together. If the palms aren't facing each other, they're not working on the same plane and they're not working together. I want my palms facing each other so that way when I flex my left wrist and I extend my right, or vice versa, they're working together. Or if I'm accomplishing ulnar deviation or radial deviation with my left wrist, same with my right, I want my hands working on the same plane. If their palms aren't facing each other, they're working against each other. So I want my palms facing each other so they're working together. It will make the golf swing a lot much easier. And I don't know where it came about, where the palms don't face each other, where the left hand is on there correctly, but the right hand kind of drifts on top. The only thing I can think of is that a golfer is really good at closing the club face with his left wrist and needs to somehow back off that a little bit with his right hand. Maybe there's some logical reason for having the palms not facing each other, but the palms need to face each other in a good golf grip. So let's start with the 3 things you'll need to set up and to take a good golf grip. You need 3 things. You'll need some sports tape. I like this Flexaid athletic tape from Walmart. I've looked around at a lot of different sports tapes, and sports tape is good to have just as a golfer because you can put it around your finger if you get a blister, or if you want to keep from getting a blister. You can use it with certain golf drills. So sports tape is good to have. I'll put a link down below to Flexaid sports tape from Walmart. The other 2 things you'll need is you'll need a magic black marker and you'll need a golf tee. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take a piece of that sports tape, just about 2 inches long, and we want to put it around the top part of this golf club. And we're going to put it down about a 1/4 inch below that top white notch or that white line around the top of the club. So here's that white line at the very top, and I'm going to put it down just about a quarter inch. And that's going to become very important here in just a little bit. The other thing is, now I want to take this magic marker and I want to draw a line down the top part of the club. Now, the important part of this is to understand that a good golf grip, the hands basically sit in a certain way in relation to the body. So I'm not going to have a draw grip and then a fade grip. I have one grip. There's a video on YouTube. If you search Jack Nicklaus One Basic Swing, that's where I got this, and that's where this comes from, and it makes perfect sense. The hands situate in relation to the body only one way. They don't change. The only thing that changes is how the club sits in your hand. So if you want to hit a slight draw, you close the club face in relation to your grip and make the same exact swing. Or if you want to hit a fade, you open the club face slightly in relation to how it sits in your hands, make the same swing, and then you end up producing a fade. So for now, we're just going to talk about how to take a grip for a draw. So we're going to take this marker and put a line right down the top spine of the club. So these are ping clubs, these are ping grips. I like that they have a line right here at the top spine. I'm going to draw a line right down the top of this club. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand here, I'm going to take this meaty part of my left hand, kind of this upper meaty part here, and I'm going to put a dot. I've got a dot right here in the upper part. I'm going to put a mark right there. And so that lets me know where this kind of pad, what I call it is a pad or meaty part of my left hand. So the third thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this golf tee, I'm gonna put it in the notch right between the inside of my left index finger and the inside of my thumb. And I'm gonna take my thumb and I'm gonna give it a little bit of a bend. So I don't wanna have a push with my left thumb. I'm gonna give a little bit of a bend as I pinch it in. So I'm gonna take this dot that I have, and as I look down with my hands just over kind of the middle of my left hip, I'm going to take this dot on my hand and I'm going to put it, as I look down, just to the right of that line. So you can see my hands are just over kind of my heart here, and it's all these same directions are going to be the same for a left-handed golfer. You just change everything. When I say left hand, you make it right hand. So this dot on my hand goes just to the right, say an eighth or a quarter of an inch, just to the right of that top line. So you can see how I take my hand, I'm going to take that dot, and I'm going to put it just to the right of that line on my club. Take it right about there. And I'm going to kind of bring the club up just a little bit, and I'm going to wrap the rest of my fingers around the club. And I'm going to take my left thumb, and my left thumb is going to be just pinched in, kind of almost to the top of the shaft or just slightly to the right of the shaft. Now the reason we want that left thumb pinched in as opposed to wrapped around, here's why. So if I have that left thumb wrapped around the club and I'm transitioning from backswing to downswing, I don't have anything to support that club from hitting me or to stop it from hitting me. So what ends up happening is the golfer squeezes their hands or tightens their grip to keep that club from hitting them. We don't want the grip tightening and untightening throughout the golf swing. So we want to take that left thumb, pinch it up there, and now I've got the left thumb supporting the club shaft, and I don't have to tighten my grip in order to stop the momentum or support that club shaft as I change directions. So that's why that tee is important. So now the right hand. So we've got the left hand on there. Hands are over my left, kind of the middle of my left hip. So I've got this club kind of leaning forward. So I'm going to take my right hand, two different types of right hand grips. There is either interlock or there is overlap. Now, most of it is what's comfortable for you, but I'll say that I use the overlap grip. I wish I would have learned the interlock grip as growing up. Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, two of the greatest players to ever play the game, use the interlock grip. So I like the interlock grip, and the reason I like it is because I believe it allows your right hand to be underneath a little bit more. The overarching rule in a golf grip, the left hand should be on top, the right hand should be underneath, because as our hands accelerate through impact, that helps us close the club face. So in terms of an interlock grip, all you do is you take the left thumb and you bring the left index finger up a little bit, opposite for a left-handed player. You take your right hand and you bring your right pinky away from the rest of your hand. You just interlock them and then close the last three fingers of your left and kind of hook your right hand around also. So that would be an interlock grip, and you want to have them kind of pretty tight. You want that interlock pretty tight. You don't want that interlock to be drifting away, because that ends up letting your right hand kind of drift on top, and then the palms don't face each other. So you want that interlock to stay pretty tight underneath. Overlap grip, same thing, the right hand underneath, but this right pinky just kind of hooks around this left index finger. So it's just kind of, you call it hook around grip or an overlap grip. So it's only, I separate these two because sometimes when I'm working with students, they'll hook the left index, the right pinky, but also they'll get this right ring finger off of the club also. So we want to separate those two so this right ring finger touches the grip. So there's a separation between that right pinky and the ring finger in. So let's walk through the rest of the grip. So we want that dot just to the right of the line, wrap the rest of the fingers around. We're going to take this, open up this left index finger for a second, going to take this right pinky and we're going to hook it in there. And what you want to feel is, you want to feel this right hand feel underneath. So if you kind of look at it, you can tell that the palms are facing each other. The back of my left hand is facing about 45 degrees out in front of me, and what I mean by that is, if straight at you or straight at the camera is one angle, and then straight at the target is another angle, I just take it about 45 degrees, and that's where I want the back of my left hand to be pointing. I don't want the back of my left hand to be pointed at the target, and I don't want the back of my left hand to be pointed straight out in front of me. I want the back of my left hand to be pointed about somewhere halfway in between that. And you want the palm of the right hand to be facing that same way. what this does, it allows us, as we're coming into impact with a flat left wrist and a slightly bent right wrist, then the hands will be leading the club head as the club head gets to close. The last thing is how the right thumb sits on the club. So a couple different ways to think about it. You can either have the right thumb kind of brush across the top, or you can have the right thumb more on the side. The only thing to know about the right thumb is we don't want the right thumb to push. Now, I cover that in other videos, but that's the only danger of having the right thumb on the side. So I go ahead and I let my right thumb kind of ride more on the side, and then I work my technique in terms of making sure that I don't push with my right hand. And I cover that in other videos again. And there's some links down to some of the other videos in terms of the technique. So that is the correct grip. Left hand on top, right hand more underneath. The right pinky either hooks or it wraps around, or the right pinky hooks around that left knuckle, and then the right hand sits more underneath at the setup. So now let's talk about the proper setup real quick. Just touch on it for just a second, because it's important to have the correct setup along with the correct grip. So now let's talk about the setup. The setup, we want our feet about 1.5, we want about 1.5 feet in between the insteps of our 2 feet. We want the toes kind of ducked out or angled out about 5 degrees, just slightly. And what that does, that opens up our hips. Now, if you're super flexible, you can angle in that right foot so it's perpendicular to your toe line. That was the thing with Hogan. He used to set up with his right foot perpendicular, and he used to turn his left foot out. Except the tough part is that Hogan hit golf balls every single day. He was very flexible. He was kind of on the thin side, so he could actually turn his right foot in and actually turn against his right side. I would say for most amateur golfers, it's better to just turn the right foot out just a little bit, and that gives us some flexibility. It allows to open up the right hip a little bit and allows the shoulders to turn a little bit better. So we want both toes kind of turned out about 5 degrees. So now let's talk about the knee flex. The knees, basically all you do is you lock out your knees and just barely unlock them. That's all you need to do. You don't need to have a lot of knee flex, but you don't want your knees locked out either. You basically want to have just a little bit of knee flex. And all I do is I just unlock my knees and I stick my rear end out like I'm going to touch it up against a wall back here, and that is about as much bend over and knee flex that you want. Now here's kind of an important part. With this edge of the club either sitting, say, flat on the ground, or I would say have the edge of the club sitting up on the toe slightly. I would rather err on the side of having the hands a little bit too high rather than too low. I'm not going to go over that in detail why that's important in this video, but I believe it's important, and there's some kind of physics and biomechanics reasons behind that. So I would say with that grip, you want your knees slightly unlocked, stick the rear end out, feet about 1.5 feet distance in between the 2 insteps. You want your weight 50-50 between the left and the right, and 50-50 between toe and heel. Basically want to make sure that you can turn back, shift your weight, turn back and through. So that's in terms of your legs. Your setup, you just want to stick your rear end out slightly. With your hands on the club, and the club, this edge of the club, either flat on the ground or up on the toe slightly. Don't let your hands get too low. So flat on the ground or up on the toe slightly. You want your hands between 2 and 3 hand width distances over the inside of your left thigh. So here is my grip. Here, looking face on. Here are my hands over my zipper with the golf ball, with the center of the golf ball being in the dead center of my stance. So I don't want the center of my stance to be the back of the golf ball, and I don't want the front of the golf ball in the center of my stance. I want the dead center of the golf ball in the dead center of my stance. With that, I want my hands just over the inside of my left thigh. So I want my hands in terms of where they are front to back. I want my hands over the inside of my left thigh. And then looking from behind, I want my hands 2 to 3 hand width distances just in front of my left thigh. So if we're looking back, I'm going to try to go behind down the line correctly. So that's about where I want my hands in terms of the setup. I want my hands just about 1, 2, and about 2.5 to 3 with this edge flat on the ground or up on the toe slightly. So that lets you know perfect grip, perfect setup. Now from there, you might have to take a look at things like your shoulder alignment. We don't want your right hand too far on, your right side too high. Getting that right hand more underneath allows your right side to drop back behind you correctly, which helps you with your takeaway. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, post them in the comment section below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Also, if you think this video has been helpful, share it with other people. Golf right now needs to grow, and I think the thing that will make golf grow as opposed to shrink is that if people learn the correct technique. If you have the correct technique, you play a better game of golf, you hit better shots, you enjoy the game more, and you stick with the game. I think that the hurdle right now in the game of golf is that there's a lot of incorrect technique out there. The game is very difficult even to begin with, even with correct technique. So that's why having as many people as possible with the correct technique will help grow the game. So thanks for watching.